Imagine you have exactly 4 minutes and 40 seconds.
Just that tiny window.
Right. In that incredibly tight window of time, you have to execute this totally flawless sequential routine to break through a locked, heavy steel door.
Well, you're just doing it in a vacuum. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. You are doing this while completely blinded by thick, toxic smoke, carrying, 50 pounds of cumbersome gear?
Easily 50 pounds, yeah.
And facing this very real possibility that the room on the other side of that door is, about to just explode right in your face.
It is the absolute definition of controlled violence. I mean, you are taking a totally chaotic, lethal environment and forcing this rigorous mathematical structure onto it.
Yeah.
Every single millimeter of your physical movement, every ounce of your body weight, it just has to be calculated.
And that terrifying, highly choreographed scenario is our mission for this deep dive.
It's a fascinating one.
It really is. We're looking at an official state examiner's training guide and checklist for firefighters. Specifically, we are going to deconstruct the protocol for executing what they call forcible entry on an outward swinging door.
Right.
And for you listening right now, whether you are, prepping for a high-stakes board meeting, navigating some crisis at work, or just trying to manage a chaotic everyday situation, understanding how emergency responders turn pure adrenaline into a calculated science, it completely reframes how you approach high-pressure problem solving.
Oh, absolutely. Because the parameters of this exam, they are unforgiving.
Yeah, that 4-minute and 40-second time limit isn't just a suggestion.
No, it is a rigid standard.
Yeah.
And there is zero room for error. Because before the clock even really starts ticking on the physical breach of the door itself, the firefighter has to establish this massive perimeter of safety protocols.
Right, the checklist.
Exactly. The examiner requires them to explicitly confirm a whole checklist of prerequisites.
So, they have to verify they're in full PPE, personal protective equipment. They have to notify the incident commander of their position and their intent. And they also have to constantly monitor the environment to determine if they are in an IDLH situation.
Which is immediately dangerous to life or health.
Right. And that specifically dictates whether they need to go on their self-contained breathing apparatus.
And the safety net extends beyond just their own gear, too. They need to ensure they have a charged backup hose line ready to go.
Just in case?
Exactly. And the building's utilities, like gas and electricity, those must be confirmed shut down to prevent secondary explosions.
Which is wild to think about doing while a fire is raging.
And crucially, in any fireground scenario, they have to identify a secondary means of egress. They need a verified way out if conditions rapidly deteriorate.
So all of this groundwork is laid before they even approach the target door?
Right.
But wait, before the firefighter even touches a tool, they have to master what is arguably the most counterintuitive part of this entire exam.
Oh, the verbalization.
Yes. The state guide refers to it as constant verbalization. The firefighter is literally required to talk to themselves out loud throughout the entire duration of the exercise.
Yep.
They cannot simply perform an action. They must announce the action using clear, calm, I am statements.
And it is a critical scoring element. You lose points or you straight up fail if you operate in silence.
Okay, let's unpack this because, to give an example, the firefighter has to retrieve their forcible entry tools. They can't just silently grab them off the rig.
No, they can't.
While they are reaching for their gear, they have to explicitly say out loud, I am selecting a Halligan tool and flathead axe as my primary forcible entry tools. I am retrieving my rope from my right bunker pocket.
And they can't stop to say it either.
Right. The guide explicitly states, do not delay movement to speak. You have to verbalize simultaneously while acting, and I have to push back on this requirement a little bit.
Oh, sure.
Managing heavy steel tools, wearing incredibly restrictive gear, and dealing with a massive flood of adrenaline seems overwhelming enough. Isn't it intensely distracting to have to narrate every single physical micro movement out loud like a sports commentator?
What's fascinating here is that on the surface, it does seem like an unnecessary cognitive load. Like, why add one more thing to do?
Exactly.
But from the examiner's perspective, they need undeniable proof that the firefighter possesses internalized tool logic. They need to hear that you know exactly what you're doing. But physiologically, This verbalization requirement is a profound hack.
A hack?
Yeah, it is entirely designed to force the brain out of a panic state.
Oh, wow. So by forcing the brain to articulate a structured I am statement out loud, you are essentially short-circuiting the amygdala's fight-or-flight panic response.
Precisely.
And giving the prefrontal cortex a mandatory logical task to process.
That's exactly it. When you are rushing toward a burning building, your amygdala is just screaming. Your system is entirely flooded with adrenaline and cortisol.
Just pure panic.
Right. Your raw animal instinct is to rush the door, to smash it, to use blind brute force.
Caveman brain.
Yeah. But by forcing the firefighter to speak in clear, deliberate sentences, it physically engages the logical centers of the brain. It forces a deliberate, methodical rhythm onto the body. It ensures the firefighter isn't acting on reckless adrenaline.
That makes so much sense.
And there's also a respiratory component.
Oh.
If you can speak calmly and clearly, you're controlling your breathing. If you are controlling your breathing, you are preserving your cognitive function.
That is brilliant. Okay, so the narration is locked in. The psychological baseline is set. The firefighter has their Halligan bar, their flat head axe, and their rope.
Ready to go.
Now they begin the physical approach. And reading this, the door itself is treated almost like an unexploded piece of ordnance that must be systematically disarmed before anyone tries to pry it open.
Oh, absolutely. The training manual dictates a very specific approach path. The firefighter must approach from the windward side if they are operating on the exterior.
So they are strategically positioning themselves so the wind is at their back.
Right.
Once that door is breached, the wind will push the ensuing heat, smoke, and toxic gases away from their body rather than blowing it directly into their face.
It is basic environmental manipulation. You use the wind to survive. And once positioned safely, they execute a visual size-up of the door itself.
What are they looking for?
They are analyzing the material and the condition. Like, is the paint blistering or severely discolored from extreme heat? Is thick black smoke actively pulsing out of the cracks around the door frame? They are specifically hunting for backdraft indicators.
Right. And for those who might not know, a backdraft is essentially an environment where the fire has consumed nearly all the available oxygen in a tightly sealed room.
It's starving.
The fire is choked, yeah, but the ambient heat remains incredibly immense. The entire room is a pressurized powder keg just waiting for a fresh breath of air to reignite.
Exactly. And if a firefighter opens that door without strict physical control, oxygen violently rushes into that superheated environment. The resulting explosion of fire pushes outward through that doorway with devastating lethal force.
Which brings us to the rope they pulled from their bunker pocket earlier.
Yes, step 4.
They take that rope and tie the door handle with a figure-8 knot. They are physically anchoring the door to their own control system. So if there is a backdraft or just a massive, sudden shift in atmospheric pressure, the door doesn't violently blow outward and take the firefighter with it.
The rope serves as a leash. In structural firefighting, controlling the door means controlling the airflow. And controlling the airflow means controlling the behavior of the fire itself.
Wow. Okay, so the door is anchored. Now we move to a detail in the checklist that is just incredibly visceral, the heat check.
Yeah, this one is intense.
The firefighter must announce, "I am checking for heat." They pull one glove down, deliberately exposing their bare skin. They sweep the door in a Z pattern, starting from the very bottom of the door, zigzagging all the way up to the top.
Barehanded.
Yes. And I'm looking at the specific requirement to use the back of the hand rather than the palm. Now, my immediate instinct, as someone who doesn't fight fires, would be to just reach out and touch the doorknob with my palm. It's like testing a baby's bottle, but for lethal temperatures. Why specifically the back of the hand?
Well, it highlights the intense pragmatism of the fire service.
Okay.
If a firefighter uses the palm of their hand to check a door and the surface is superheated, their hand will either instinctively grasp it, or at the very least, they will suffer severe burns to the palm and the flexor tendons of the fingers.
Oh, man.
Right. And if you burn your palm, you can no longer grip your primary forcible entry tools. You cannot physically hold the Halligan bar, and you cannot safely swing the flat head axe.
Your mission is over instantly.
Over, and worse, you become an immediate liability to your crew.
Right.
But by using the back of the hand, even if they suffer a severe thermal burn, their grip strength and mechanical functionality remain largely intact.
That is just grim, but so incredibly smart. And what about that Z-pattern motion from bottom to top? I assume that serves a specific diagnostic purpose.
It does. Heat rises and hot gases bank down from the ceiling. By starting at the floor and sweeping up in a Z pattern, they are systematically mapping the heat gradient of the room inside without ever opening the door.
Oh.
Yeah, and acts as an external thermal imaging camera. It tells them precisely where the fire is banked down to. If the door is cool at the bottom, but blistering hot near the top hinges, they know there is a distinct thermal layer of gases inside.
But if it's hot all the way down...
If the door is radiating extreme heat all the way down to the floorboards, they know the room is entirely involved in fire from floor to ceiling.
Wow. Okay, so the firefighter has survived the approach. They've tied off the door to control the airflow, and they have mapped the thermal layer.
Now comes the breach.
Right. Now they face the actual locked mechanism, and the golden rule of forcible entry appears here. Try before you pry. Here's where it gets really interesting, because they literally just have to reach out and try the handle to see if it is unlocked.
Yep.
There is a deep irony in doing all this intense mental preparation, dropping the glove, mapping the heat, tying the specialized knot, and then discovering you can just turn the handle and walk right in.
But it happens much more frequently than people realize.
Really?
Oh, yeah. The flood of adrenaline creates intense tunnel vision. A firefighter might spend 2 exhausting minutes destroying a door frame with heavy steel tools, only to realize after they break through that the deadbolt was never actually thrown.
Oh, that would be so frustrating.
Exactly. Try before you pry is a mandatory pause. It forces the brain to confirm that destructive forcible entry is actually required before expending massive amounts of energy.
Let's assume the handle does not turn.
Okay.
They verbalize. Door is secured, forcible entry is required. This triggers an evaluation for what the manual calls a through-the-lock method. They examine the lock cylinder and ask the examiner, can I use the K tool or A tool?
Right, the surgical option.
Wait, as a civilian, I'm having trouble picturing this. How exactly does a small secondary tool cleanly pop an embedded cylinder out of a reinforced commercial door?
So a K tool is a highly specialized piece of equipment designed for, like you said, surgical entry. It is a metal block with K-shaped blades machined into it. The firefighter slides these blades down directly over the lock cylinder itself.
Over the keyhole part.
Exactly. Then they use the flathead axe to lightly tap the K-tool, biting the blades deep into the brass of the cylinder. Then they use the Halligan bar to pry the entire K-tool outward.
Just ripping it out.
The immense leverage simply snaps the shear screws holding the lock cylinder inside the door. The cylinder pulls completely out, leaving a small hole. The firefighter then reaches into that hole with a specialized key tool and manually trips the locking mechanism from the inside.
That is entirely surgical. It causes minimal property damage compared to smashing the door off its hinges.
Right, but it's not always an option.
Let's assume the examiner denies the K tool, or the specific lock type makes it impossible. Now the firefighter must pivot to conventional entry, the heavy metal.
Now we're talking.
The first step is tool placement. The firefighter must firmly brace their shoulder or their foot hard against the door itself for physical stability. They take the adze, which is the flat, wedge-like blade located on the working end of the Halligan tool, and they meticulously wedge it into the tight gap between the door and the jamb, directly adjacent to the locking mechanism.
And the precision here is paramount. They are not blindly swinging a heavy axe at the center of the door panel.
Right.
They are targeting the absolute specific point of failure, the few millimeters of metal where the deadbolt crosses into the door frame.
So they hold the Halligan in place, and they use the heavy, flat head axe basically as a sledgehammer. They strike the back of the Halligan bar to drive that wedge deep into the door jamb, intentionally defeating the locking mechanism.
And they narrate it.
Yes. They narrate the action. I am striking the Halligan to drive the blade into the jamb. Once the tool is set deep enough, they begin the pry. They pull back on the Halligan to pry the door away from the jamb.
But there's a catch here.
There is, and the examiner's text specifically mandates this instruction. As you rotate your body to pry, use the wall for protection. That implies a massive release of stored kinetic energy. Like when they are finally prying the door, what exactly are they protecting themselves from at this stage?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, forcible entry is really an exercise in the mechanics of leverage. It is rarely about sheer brute strength. It is entirely about body geometry and maximizing tool logic.
Okay.
The Halligan bar acts as an incredibly efficient lever, and the door frame acts as the fulcrum. When you drive a steel wedge deep into a reinforced door frame and a firefighter applies hundreds of pounds of rotational force to the end of that lever, you're generating and storing massive amounts of kinetic energy in the wood and metal.
Because the door and the frame are essentially becoming a giant, tense spring.
Exactly. And when the lock finally fails, or if a piece of the heavy wooden door frame splinters and snaps under the pressure, all of that stored energy releases instantaneously.
Oh, wow.
The physical kickback can be brutal. The door can snap open violently, or the heavy steel tool can suddenly slip from the gap and strike the firefighter.
So the wall.
By intentionally flattening their body against the adjacent wall, while they pull back on the leverage tool, the wall structurally absorbs any physical kickback from the metal.
That makes sense.
And, more importantly, it keeps the firefighter's body completely out of the direct flow path of the superheated toxic gases and thick black smoke that are about to erupt outward from that pressurized room.
So the lock finally clears the metal receiver. The door is defeated. The firefighter maintains strict control of the outward swing using the rope leash they tied earlier, and they announce to the examiner, entry has been gained.
The breach is successful.
The door swinged open. The fire environment is now exposed. But the examiner's timer hasn't stopped. Because the single most dangerous step of the entire 4-minute and 40-second evolution occurs right across that threshold.
Yep. The threshold is the danger zone. The firefighter conducts a final critical safety check. They visually sweep the immediate interior floor space for structural debris, severe obstructions, and most importantly, any victims who may have collapsed right inside the doorway trying to escape.
Following the sweep, they perform an action called sounding the floor.
Right.
They must use a tool tap method to aggressively confirm the building is structurally sound before they ever step inside. So what does this all mean? This immediately makes me think of walking across a frozen lake in the middle of winter, or like navigating a rickety, dilapidated bridge while blindfolded. You have to tap heavily in front of you with a walking cane before you ever commit your body weight to the next step.
That's a very apt comparison.
But does sounding the floor literally just mean hitting it with an axe to see if it feels hollow or breaks? I mean, a visual check is entirely useless because the smoke is banked down to the ground.
The frozen lake analogy perfectly captures the terrifying reality of the environment. Crossing the threshold of a burning building is a calculated, highly dangerous claim of territory. You are physically stepping into a zero-visibility environment.
Right.
Fire radically compromises the structural integrity of a building in minutes. The floorboards directly inside that door might just be a burned-out, fragile shell, completely covered by a rug or obscured by thick smoke.
Oh, geez.
If a firefighter strides confidently into that room without checking, they could plummet straight through the compromised floorboards into a basement inferno.
That is a nightmare. And the mechanics of the tool tap are fascinating, too. They literally strike the floorboards as hard as they can with the heavy steel end of the flathead axe or the Halligan.
Yeah, you really have to hit it.
That heavy strike sends a distinct physical vibration straight up the handle of the tool into their gloves. A solid, structurally sound floor rings true and feels rigid.
Exactly.
But a severely compromised, fire-damaged floor feels hollow, spongy, or the heavy tool head might simply punch right through the floorboards entirely.
It physically confirms whether a floor even exists under the blinding smoke before they commit their life to the interior.
They narrate this final action. I am sounding the floor to confirm structural stability before entry. And with that final sweep and successful sound of the floorboards, the forcible entry evolution is officially complete.
All executed flawlessly within 4 minutes and 40 seconds.
To help rookies wrap their heads around the sheer volume of tasks required, the training guide provides a quick memory flow that firefighters use to memorize this chaos.
That's a great mnemonic.
It compresses the entire protocol into a 12-beat rhythm. Confirm tools, windward approach, size up, tie door, heat check, try door, evaluate lock, set Halligan, strike, pry, open, sweep, and sound.
It acts as the ultimate cognitive anchor. It's a masterclass in safety, physics, and maintaining absolute control in an out-of-control environment.
And the takeaway here extends far beyond structural firefighting. For you, the listener, the next time you find yourself facing an incredibly high-pressure scenario, perhaps a cascading crisis at your job, or a situation where a sudden spike in adrenaline is actively clouding your judgment, remember the psychological trick of constant verbalization.
Talk it out.
Remember the stabilizing power of the mental checklist. Forcing yourself to speak your required actions calmly, to methodically work through the incremental steps rather than rushing blindly toward the final outcome, can literally shift your brain's processing center. It moves you from panic back into the realm of executive control.
It is a profound lesson in maintaining presence of mind when your instincts are telling you to panic. And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over today, just bridging this intense training back to your everyday life.
Okay.
Think about the physical doors you walk through every single day. The heavy glass door to your office lobby, the door to your apartment building, the side entrance of your local coffee shop. If a sudden emergency occurred and you found yourself with just 4 minutes and 40 seconds to breach one of those familiar doors to escape, would you even know if it swings inward towards you or outward away from you?
Wow.
Do you know where the hinge pins are located? And more importantly, amidst all the crushing panic, the blinding adrenaline, and the overwhelming urge to just break it down, would you remember to pause, take a breath, and simply try the handle first?